I attacked him viciously, and I didn't stop.
My plan was to murder him.
You're lucky I don't have a shotgun right now. I got one loaded. For your
Because you're a bitch. You're a coward. You already know how life is in prison. And you think you're gonna just be happy-go-lucky? Nah, you're gonna suffer for the rest of your life. Bent over with your mouth open, being everybody's bitch for the rest of your life.
Amanda Henry's father was killed, but her sympathy isn't with him. It's with his killer.
I would love to see him released. I would.
That's because her father, Matteo Condalucci, is a convicted pedophile. Amanda says he terrorized her by brutally, sexually, and physically abusing her for years. There were times Amanda wished her dad was dead, even attempting suicide to escape the horror that was being his daughter.
I wanted to die for the longest time. And many times I tried to, and it didn't work.
James Fairbanks admits to shooting and killing Condalucci after seeing him watching children playing in their neighborhood. Fairbanks says he learned of Condalucci's criminal past while researching the area for an apartment.
Like I said, I was out kind of searching for an apartment. I just thought, I better check to make sure right here in this direct area there isn't a convicted sex offender. And it turned out there was. I saw him, there was no mistaking him. I mean, he's a really large man, over 6 foot, over 300 pounds. At first I thought he was washing his truck, but then I just noticed these group of kids that were playing, I don't know. He was just kind of standing there staring at him. And I mean, I was obviously in full-blown panic mode. I was just, oh my gosh, I can't believe what I'm watching right now. I just knew the way he was watching those kids and for the intensity and the length.
Fairbanks is speaking from a Nebraska jail, where he's being held on a charge of first-degree murder.
And I mean, I just went home and I felt sick, honestly. That night, all night, my stomach was in knots. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. I was just thinking about it.
After noticing Condalucci's place set in his yard, a magnet for kids, he decided to confront Condalucci.
But as I went to leave, I was driving off, and then I saw the playground in his backyard, and that just absolutely kind of blew my mind that a twice convicted sex offender who I know couldn't have any contact with children, it's on his registry information, has a huge playground in his backyard with no fence. I didn't feel like there was, like I said, anybody I could turn to with all this, so I decided I was going to go over there and threaten him, basically. Was my intention to go over there and let him know, look, I know who you are. I watched you the other day. If you touch any of these kids, you're not going to get another slap on the wrist from the justice system. I'm coming next time. Next time you touch one of these kids, you're going to deal with me.
Fairbanks brought his gun, and the confrontation took a deadly turn.
I brought a gun, approached his house. He opened the door, he saw me coming. I pulled the gun out, I told him to back up. As soon as I started talking, he came forward. Immediately, again, he was a 6 foot, 300 plus pound man. I knew I had to shoot, or who knows what was going to happen. Again, I mean, I'm willing to take responsibility for the fact that I went over to his house.
While his actions have been condemned by law enforcement, community support for him was growing. Even Condalucci's mom said she had great relief knowing her son was dead.
I've struggled so many years, every day, almost 3 decades. There wasn't a day that went by that I didn't think about what he was possibly doing. Not possibly. I knew in my heart he would be doing to other children and whose lives he would be destroying.
An online petition asking former President Trump to pardon Fairbanks had nearly 50,000 signatures, and a Facebook group campaigning to free him had more than 2,000 followers. Laura Smith heads the group.
I support James Fairbanks because he did something that the system failed to do, and that is protect our children.
Condalucci served less than 2 years for sexually assaulting a child in Nebraska in 2006 and was convicted of similar crimes in Florida in 1993. Fairbanks, once a paraprofessional at a middle school, says he has intimate knowledge of the lifelong damage that's caused by sexual abuse.
As I mentioned in the email, I've worked with kids my entire life. I've had personal experience. When I was a kid, I personally wasn't molested, but a loved one was, and I don't want to get into that too much. And again, like I said, when working, I've watched the kids over the years that I've worked with. Just so many of them confide in me the torment and the pain that they're going through with their abuse that they've suffered. And I've watched them grow up and become drug addicts and just have no self-worth. And I've seen, the lifelong suffering that so many of these kids.
Well, Fairbanks says he's grateful for the support he's getting. He's urging people to channel their energy in a different direction.
I've been deeply grateful and appreciate all the support that I've received. I am asking, though, that those people channel their efforts elsewhere to changing these laws. And if the whole point of all of this is I just get off, then I think we missed a chance to actually do something. And that's take this momentum that seems to be out there and freeing me and channeling it to the district attorney and the judges and the legislators and go, we need tougher penalties. We need to stop cutting these deals that allow men like him to molest children for decades and only serve minimum sentences and be allowed to move right back into our neighborhoods.
Meanwhile, a group that opposes public sex offender registries denounced Condalusi's death as the latest example of state-sponsored facilitation of vigilante murders. Fairbanks will be spending the next 2 decades in prison after the 40 to 70-year sentence from District Court Judge Russell Bowie for the murder of Matteo Condalusi. Fairbanks is credited with 421 days served, and with Nebraska good time laws, he could serve as little as 20 years.
Over the next 20 years, we don't expect him to die in prison, so he will be able to get out. He'll be able to hopefully see his grandkids. His kids will be, later on in years, but he does have something to look forward to. He's got some hope.
But the Deputy County Attorney Brenda Beadle said Fairbanks, who argued self-defense, planned to confront and shoot Condalusi.
He wanted publicity. He wanted to take justice into his own hands, and that's what he did.
Condalusi's daughter says she wants to see harsher laws against sex offenders, saying the justice system didn't punish her father enough.
I honestly think if punishments for pedophiles were harsher, longer terms, this wouldn't have happened.
But Beadle says Nebraska does have tough laws, and the sentence shows people shouldn't take the law into their own hands.
I mean, if you can imagine the slippery slope that would occur if we allowed citizens to start deciding who gets to live and who doesn't based on what they've done.
My plan was to murder him. Just straight up.
Next, we will go to a McLennan County courthouse in Texas. In court, Sean Foster is charged with burglary, intent to commit indecency with a child, and indecency with a child by contact. The circumstances that led him to court were shocking.
You're lucky I don't have a shotgun right now. I got one loaded. For your
Brandon Moore and his wife Leone were desperate after reporting their daughter Maddie was being abused by their friend Sean Foster. He had been molesting Maddie since she was 9, even walking in on her while she showered.
I was afraid of him raping me because I was completely naked, and it would have been easier than if I was fully clothed.
The waiting game with the police was unbearable, so Brandon hatched a plan to catch Foster in the act. When they knew what was going on, Brandon and Leone were consumed with dark thoughts. Leone fantasized about inflicting pain on Foster.
I'm thinking, give me 10 minutes in a room with that man, strap him down and let me do some things to him that are very painful.
While Brandon considered killing him.
I was just gonna put my shotgun right here and just pull the trigger.
But realized the consequences would devastate his family. Instead, the former Marine with a PhD decided to set a trap. Maddie, who worked part-time for Foster's pool construction business, regularly texted him. Brandon sent a message from Maddie's phone pretending to be her, saying she would be ready to work after a shower. With the trap set, Brandon locked the front door, turned on the shower, and waited, while Leon watched from a distance. As soon as Foster entered the house, Leone called 911. Brandon recorded the confrontation on his phone. Foster ripped open the shower curtain, only to find Brandon waiting.
Hey, what the are you doing? What are you doing? I haven't done anything to her. You don't touch a 14-year-old girl.
Filled with rage, Brandon attacked Foster, beating and choking him. The police arrived and arrested Foster, who was charged with multiple counts, including burglary and indecency with a child. His bail was set at $500,000. Despite the serious charges, Foster made bail and rejected a plea deal that would have given him 20 years in prison, opting instead for a jury trial. Brandon's thoughts of revenge resurfaced as the legal process dragged on. During the trial, the prosecution presented the audio recording of the confrontation, which played a crucial role in illustrating Foster's intent.
What are you doing? What are you doing? I haven't done anything to her. You don't touch a 14-year-old girl.
Maddie also testified against Foster, confronting him in court and reaffirming his guilt. The jury found Foster guilty on multiple counts. He was sentenced to 55 years in prison, a sentence that brought some measure of justice to Maddie and her family. Brandon did not face any charges for the beating, a fact that brought relief and a sense of vindication to the Moore family. Maddie expressed satisfaction with the outcome, though she wished for even harsher penalty for such crimes.
Honestly, though, I do wish that they gave like the death sentence for stuff like this or life, but they don't. And so he got a lot longer than I was expecting. Now I know he's in prison and my dad beat you up, so it works out.
The case highlighted the delicate balance between seeking justice and adhering to the law.
I really hope the other prisoners find out what he's there for and they do the things that prisoners do to child molesters.
This is Christopher Elwell, who's facing child molestation charges in New Hampshire. According to reports, 28-year-old Elwell assaulted a 4-year-old at his Dove apartment while the child was having a sleepover with his 9-year-old daughter. Elwell was arrested and charged with aggravated felonious sexual assault. The prosecution said Elwell showed the minor several sexually implicit videos.
They described him showing them videos of sexual acts similar to the ones that she had done.
After initially denying the allegations, Elwell eventually pleaded guilty. He also pled guilty for failing to register as a sex offender, having been previously convicted on a different charge.
The defendant was required to register as a sex offender and had been living at 12 Mineral Park Drive off and on, but more than 5 times a month, and had not changed his registration with the Somersworth Police Department.
After learning his fate, Elwell was sat down with another prisoner, Josiah Davies, who was awaiting his hearing. Then suddenly, out of nowhere, Davies started headbutting Elwell repeatedly. Elwell seemed impassive as court deputies quickly apprehended Davies. He was later charged with felony assault. As for Elwell, he was ultimately sentenced to 7.5 to 15 years in prison.
Christopher Elwell was sentenced to 7.5 to 15 years for sexually assaulting a 4-year-old girl.
Murdering somebody's not a good thing, but I mean, Jesus, man, if the things this guy did, things he said he did, I wouldn't want someone like that on the street.
This is Stephen Sanderson, who's facing murder charges in Michigan.
I do what's necessary. I do what some people won't. I mean, you guys are cops. You arrest people all the time for stuff that you wish you could shoot them in the face. I already know that. I'm not stupid.
According to reports, Sanderson, who was already serving life without parole in state prison for a 1991 murder case, he attacked and killed 67-year-old Ted Dyer in their cell. Later, Sanderson gave a chilling confession to the police.
Why don't you just go ahead and tell us what happened?
All right, I guess he decided to clear his conscience or something, but, you know, he told me what he was in prison for, that he had, you know, was accused of raping an 11-year-old girl, and he got 25 to life for it, and, you know, I told him that's enough, I don't want to hear anymore. I first, you know, punched him a couple times, still wouldn't shut up. Still kept telling me he wanted to explain that he didn't do it, that he was being set up and all this stuff, and I don't know, I just got mad and then hit him, and then I killed him. When I hit him and knocked him out, and then I took the shoelaces out of his shoes, tied them together, wrapped it around his neck, and killed him.
He eventually pleaded guilty to the murder charge.
How do you wish to plead to the second count of murder in the second degree? Guilty?
Yes, sir.
And doing so freely and voluntarily?
Yes.
Doing so because you are guilty?
Yes, sir.
All right.
In court, Sanderson justified taking the life of his cellmate by giving a specific reason.
The reason I killed him was because he was a child molester.
Back in 2014, Dyer was convicted of sexual criminal conduct for molesting a 9-year-old girl.
All right, well, he was my bunkie, and I had found out that he was in prison for child molestation. Really bad case. So that night he was trying to justify why he did it, and I just told him to be quiet, and he would have to leave in the morning to find a new cell, but he continued to talk about it and try to justify it. So he was a little bit bigger than me, so I got down and I hit him in his face a few times, and when he fell, I wrapped a cord around his neck and I took his life.
As a formality to the guilty plea, Sanderson's lawyer confirmed the basics.
But you did in fact kill him.
Oh, sure.
And you intended to.
Oh, sure, yes.
At his sentencing, Sanderson addressed the public response he received following the murder.
You know, since this all happened, it's kind of been, people think I'm some kind of hero. Well, I'm actually not. I just, did what I thought was best.
He said Dyer's real judgment was yet to come.
I've been getting these emails saying that, it's not my position to judge anybody. And I want to make it quite clear that I didn't judge him. I know God is the only judge we have. I've just set the appointment up.
Sanderson showed no remorse for his actions and said he would do it again given the chance.
I don't feel bad for what I did. I feel bad for maybe his family or something. But as far as remorse towards him, no.
I attacked him viciously, and I didn't stop. The only time I paused was to go to the kitchen and retrieve a butcher knife because I was going to kill him.
This is Raymond Frolander. He was sentenced to 25 years in prison for lewd and lascivious molestation of an 11-year-old boy. The sentencing followed an incident that made international headlines when the boy's father caught Frolander in the act and severely beat him.
Because I was going to kill him. And my son stepped in front of me and saved his life. He just looked at me and said, "Sir." And he shook his head and just, "No." And I just put the knife down. I just wouldn't traumatize him any more than he already was.
When he appeared in court, he appeared like this, bruised and beaten. His mugshot was even worse.
How do you plea?
No contest.
I accept your plea.
Frolander pleaded no contest to the charges, which could have carried a life sentence. Circuit Judge Leah Case handed down the 25-year sentence as part of a plea deal. Upon his release, Frolander will be registered as a sexual predator and will be on sex offender probation with electronic monitoring for the rest of his life. Standing in front of the judge in an orange gel jumpsuit, Frolander responded to questions with a calm, "Yes, ma'am," and showed no emotion when entering his plea. He has been held without bail since the incident.
But the victim's father is still furious that Frolander, who he treated like family, could hurt his son.
The boy's father, who at the time of the sentencing was protected to safeguard the victim, was present in the courtroom along with the boy's grandmother and other family members. They chose not to testify. After the hearing, the father made a brief statement to reporters saying the following before walking away.
He's going to learn in the next 25 years why I let him live.
The father had initially made headlines when he called 911 after discovering Frolander abusing his son.
"I just walked in and found a grown man molesting, and I got him in a bloody puddle for you right now, officer."
When asked if any weapons were involved, he replied, "My foot and my fist."
Okay, you got help on the way, okay?
I appreciate it, sir.
All right, do not hang up with me. Stay on the phone with me until police get there. Were there any weapons involved?
My fist and my foot.
Frolander was knocked unconscious and dragged into the living room to await police arrival. No charges were filed against the father for his actions. The boy's grandmother expressed relief after the sentencing, stating that she just wanted justice for her grandson. Despite the betrayal by Frolander, who was close to the family, the grandmother stated that she had forgiven him, citing her Christian faith. The family accepted the plea deal to spare the boy from the ordeal of a trial. Looking ahead, the family hopes to advocate for stronger mandatory sentences for sex offenders, ensuring that justice is served and other families are protected from similar experiences. Daytona Beach investigators confirmed that Frolander had confessed to the assault, bringing a semblance of closure to a deeply painful chapter for the family. This is Quinn Bowes, who facing charges for murder. Quinn is in court for the murder of his 11-month-old son. Quinn was found guilty and sentenced to 25 years in prison. However, as he was being led away, the unexpected happened. Jeremiah Matthew Hartley, the child's uncle, punched him before he was wrestled down by the police. Jeremiah was eventually sentenced to 179 days in jail for his actions. Next, we are going to the Superior Court of Sussex County, where Clark Fredericks pleads guilty to passion provocation manslaughter, a second-degree crime. What led him here? He killed his abuser.
From the time that I was 8 years old, until I was 12 years old, I was sexually assaulted and raped by Dennis Pegg.
On June 12, 2012, Clark Fredericks confronted Dennis Pegg, a 68-year-old man who had been a close family friend and Boy Scout leader. Pegg had also worked as a Sussex County corrections officer. Fredericks accused Pegg of sexually abusing him when he was between the ages of 8 and 12, a secret Fredericks had kept for decades. Fredericks had been silent about the abuse until the night of the incident, when, while drinking alcohol and using cocaine with a friend, Robert Reynolds, he confessed. Reynolds suggested confronting Pegg, and within 40 minutes, Pegg was dead.
I started stabbing Dennis. I said over and over to him, "How does it feel raping little kids now?"
During his statement, he also said that he was provoked by the recent sightings of Dennis with another 13-year-old boy.
I immediately suspected that he was molesting the boy. It made me flash back to my own childhood.
Superior Court Judge Thomas Kitely, presiding over the case, sentenced Fredericks to 5 years in state prison for passion provocation manslaughter, a second-degree crime. Although initially charged with first-degree murder, the evidence of Fredericks' abuse led to a reduced charge.
In the spring of 2011, I saw Dennis Pegg with a boy who was about 13 or 14 years old at the Quick Check in Newton.
I don't feel like I am sentencing someone who was committed to a criminal lifestyle. What happened to him as a child made him snap. During the more than 3-hour sentencing hearing, all parties agreed on the severity of Fredericks' past abuse. The judge acknowledged the unique circumstances, but stopped short of further reducing the sentence. Despite the harrowing details, both Judge Critchley and Sussex County First Assistant Prosecutor Gregory Muller emphasized that killing is never a solution. I don't recommend that anyone follow in my steps, no matter how painful it may seem. I urge everyone to speak out about abuse and bring perpetrators to justice through the legal system. The case also deeply affected Pegg's family. Assistant Prosecutor Muller read a statement from them acknowledging possible wrongdoing by Pegg, but condemning Fredericks' actions. Instead of going through legal channels, Fredericks chose to end Pegg's life unlawfully. The court heard from psychologists on both sides, concluding that Fredericks had acted under significant provocation due to the abuse he suffered.
Child molesters do not deserve to live. They got exactly what they deserve. Had to do it over again, I'd kill more.
This is Jeremy and Christine Moody, who were all smiles as they stand before the judge for their sentencing in Union, South Carolina. No, they are not exchanging vows. They're already married.
They're nuts.
They're also neo-Nazis who were found guilty of first-degree murder, the killing of Charles Parker and his wife Gretchen. The Moody's targeted Parker, who they did not know, after seeing his address in a sex offender state registry. The couple also believed God wanted them to eliminate all sex offenders. Surveillance footage from the Parker home helped police locate the killers, as did Jeremy's tattoos, including skinhead written across his neck, white power top his head. When the couple were questioned, they didn't deny their guilt. In fact, they both not only confessed, they told authorities they planned to kill more sex offenders.
Had to do it over again, I'd kill more.
It made me mad. They were laughing about what they did. Took someone's life the way they did it. Nobody should die like that. Nobody.
The Moody's pleaded guilty to murder, kidnapping, and burglary. And in court, they're asking Judge Lee Alford for mercy, as well as the minimum sentence of 30 years in prison.
Your Honor, a day goes by that I don't regret it. I know that what I've done is a sin, and I believe that God has forgiven me of it. Please have mercy on Christine and I so we can still have a chance to grow old together as husband and wife.
Next, it was Christine Moody's chance to plead for forgiveness.
The Bible clearly states thou shalt not kill. I'm sorry I broke that commandment, but I truly believe God has forgiven Jeremy and I. I hope you will too. Your Honor, please see it fit that Jeremy and I are sentenced to the same sentence of 30 years. Never kissing my husband or feeling his touch again is my very worst nightmare. Please give us a light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you.
After taking in their words of remorse and request to remain together, it's now all up to Judge Alford.
Brutally killed these 2 people. They had no way to defend themselves or anything else. And I tell you that I believe that if these 2 were to get out of jail, I would be concerned that they would do exactly the same thing again. I don't have any question about it. I think it is a case that justice demands a life sentence.
After hearing their sentences, the murderous couple share a final kiss before they're separated. But as they exit the court, whatever remorse they tried to convey has quickly disappeared.
That's what child molesters get.
Outside the courthouse, the Moody's continue to express their true feelings.
I think Jeremy and I would have done it again if given the opportunity.
Do you have any regrets?
I have no regrets. Killing that pedophile was the best day of my life.
What about not being able to see Jeremy?
Jeremy and I have a love that will withstand me.
What about what you said in court about repenting? Is that not true then?
No, it's not true. My lawyer made me say it.
Do you have anything to say to the victim's family?
May they die also.
Jeremy and Christine Moody were both sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. This is Clifford Thomas. He is the boyfriend of the mother's 3-year-old child who died from multiple blunt force injuries. Her death was later ruled a homicide, and the mother and boyfriend are in court together. During the sentencing, the child's biological father, Dwayne Smith, was getting ready to give a victim impact statement to the man responsible for his daughter's death. Thomas was sentenced to 57 months to 15 years in prison for involuntary manslaughter and 1 to 2 years for resisting and obstructing a police officer. Gordon was sentenced to 7 to 15 years for involuntary manslaughter and 14 to 25 years for first-degree child abuse. And for Dwayne Smith, the judge declined to hold him in contempt of court. This is Michael Madison. He is now convicted serial killer from East Cleveland, Ohio, known to have committed at least 3 murders, all of whom were women. During his sentencing hearing, Van Terry took the stand to deliver a victim impact statement to the man who tortured and murdered his 18-year-old daughter.
Right now, I guess we're supposed to, in our hearts, forgive this clown. Who's touched our families, taken my child.
In this split second, Terry is staring right at Madison, and that's when, reportedly, Madison smiled back. Terry was released without charges, and in 2016, Madison was sentenced to death, and he is currently being held on death row. This is Larry Nassar. He is now an American convicted sex offender and former osteopathic physician. For 18 years, he was the team doctor of the United States Women's National Gymnastics team, giving him access to hundreds of girls and young women who he abused.
The word Nassar will permanently be associated with child sexual abuse.
What kind of a person has the audacity to sexually assault a child in front of their mother?
I will be out in the real world, thriving, empowering, and standing
by others while you rot in a prison cell the rest of your life.
I really feel that my entire family has gone through hell and back these last few months because of what Larry Nassar did to both my sisters and I years ago. I have known Larry Nassar for most of my life. He once was someone I had always trusted.
I would ask you to, as part of this sentencing, to grant me 5 minutes in a locked room with this demon. Would you do that? Yes or no?
No, sir.
Would you give me 1 minute?
You know that I can't do that. That's not how it is.
Well, I'm going to have to get something on.
Stay down. Stay down. I understand.
Let me have that son of a bitch.
I understand, but stay down.
I want that.
Stop fighting. Behind your back. Put your hands behind your back.
I want that son of a bitch.
Put your hands behind your back.
I don't. Give me 1 minute with that pastor.
Yeah, go ahead. You're good.
So professional. 1 minute.
Relax, sir. Relax. Take it easy, buddy. Just relax. Okay, now we're gonna kind of let up, okay? You have to let up too, okay? All right, sit up. Get on your side. Sit up.
Where is he? 1, 2, 3, up. What if this happened to you guys?
Not behave like that. No one can behave like this. I want to make sure it's crystal clear. I'm sure Judge Craig.
You haven't lived through it, lady.
You cannot behave like this.
Nassar was sentenced to 40 to 175 years in prison for various charges, to be served after a separate 60-year sentence. That means he'll serve at least 100 years in prison, effectively a life sentence. And for the father, he won't face any criminal charges.
I came here in support of my daughters. I knew they were going to read a statement. I didn't know what all was in it. They would not let me see it ahead of time. I've dealt with my daughters as of late very delicately. I'm realizing they may never trust a man again. Then I got to hear that, and I look over here, and Larry Nassar's shaking his head no, like it didn't happen. Who would put themselves through this if it didn't happen? I lost control. I apologize 100 times.